everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about the best horror and thriller books that I have read over the past couple of years in order to give you some recommendations for the spooky season. And of course you don't need to stop reading thriller and horror books when October ends. I think these books are perfect for any time of year. So I don't know how many books I have here. I've got quite a long list, so I might as well get started. These aren't in any particular order, it's just the order that I wrote them down in. So the first book that I want to recommend is The Appeal. This one is a very good book. I would say that it's more of a mystery than a thriller book. It's about a very small community. Oh no, I don't know how much to say without spoiling it because it's just a journey to get to the bottom of what's going on. But basically it's told in mixed media format. There are some solicitors who are putting together some documentation in order to properly understand the case that their company is working on. This case focuses on a very, very small community and the townspeople within it who have a lot going on. I can't remember if they say at the beginning what has happened to cause the solicitors to get involved with this case, so I'm just not going to say anything. Just know that this is very, very mysterious and obviously thrilling. It's very, very exciting to try and figure out what's going on, and I would say there are like 2 or 3 twists in here or big reveals. If you've ever done one of those sort of cases, mystery cases with your friends where you're kind of putting things together and you get to the next clue and the next sort of big reveal and then it pushes you in another direction, it kind of felt like that. I really, really enjoyed this one, so I would highly recommend it. Next I would like to recommend As Good as Dead. This is the 3rd book in the Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy, and I'm choosing the 3rd book because it's the one that came out the most recently, although it's not actually my favourite in the series, the first one is. So this is a book series that is YA. It's a thriller series. Again, it's told in mixed media format. It follows a girl called Pip. In the first book, she is doing a sort of, I guess it's kind of like a thesis or dissertation, but for secondary school, which I've never actually heard of before, but apparently it's a thing. And she is investigating a local disappearance. A teenage girl from her school, who I think was like a couple of years older than her, went missing, and the guy who supposedly kidnapped her or murdered her or made her disappear then killed himself. So no one really found out what exactly happened, but everyone just assumed it was him. But Pip doesn't think so. So she starts looking into it, putting all of this documentation together. This is definitely one that I would love to reread very, very soon. I'm thinking maybe in November, because this book series is actually set where I live in Buckinghamshire, and it keeps mentioning places that I'm very, very familiar with, so I love it. I'm actually mutual friends with some people who are Facebook friends with the author. Again, very tight-knit community here in Buckinghamshire. We all know each other somehow. So yeah, it's one that I do want to reread and also visit all of the places of. So it's a video idea that I have. No one steal it. I thought of it first on my own, all by myself. But yeah, I would highly, highly recommend this trilogy. I love it so much. There's also a short novella which I read recently and I loved it. I would also like to recommend Rock, Paper, Scissors. This is Alice Feeney's most recent book, bar 1, meaning it came out last year. This is about a guy who is someone's husband and he has face blindness, so he can't tell faces apart. He and his wife are struggling in their marriage, so they go on a long weekend together to, I think it's like an building used to be like a church. It's like an Airbnb type thing, and the building has been converted into some sort of dwelling, and it's really creepy. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the twist a lot, so I would highly recommend this one. I haven't read any other books by Alice Feeney yet, but I really, really want to. Next, I want to recommend White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. This isn't her most popular book. A lot of people actually didn't like this one. It's a horror book. It's about a teenage girl who moves into a new house with her family. The reasons they're moving in to this neighborhood are very kind of suspicious. The neighbors aren't the most welcoming, but they were very keen for the family to move in, and then spooky things start happening inside the house. The house may or may not be haunted. The main character does have some addiction issues, for various reasons actually, so if you find that triggering, do not read this book, or at least go into this cautiously. But nevertheless, I really, really enjoyed this book. I found it very creepy at points, and I really, really enjoy Tiffany D. Jackson's writing. I've read most of her books now at this point, and I really, really enjoy all of them. She also released a new book this year, which is a Carrie retelling. I haven't read that one, and I'm not sure I want to because of the domestic abuse angle, but she is a fantastic writer, so I'd highly recommend reading this book, or any of hers. I also want to recommend Falling, which kind of had a bit of a marketing push last year, I think, but it didn't really gain much traction. So this is definitely a thriller book rather than a mystery. It's about a man who has a family. He is an airline pilot, and he is threatened to make a decision. He either has to crash his plane, which is full of people, or his family will die. It's basically just a race against time to rescue the pilot, and for the pilot to stall the man who's threatening to kill his family, and to also save a plane full of people. I found it very, very exciting. I probably wouldn't read it just before I get on a plane, but it was a good book and I really also like this cover. It's really, really cool. What I particularly liked about this one was that the author used to be an air hostess, I think. So I felt like there was some inside perspective there and she really knew what she was talking about. I also want to recommend My Lovely Wife. I really like this author's books, but this one is definitely my favourite of hers. This one is about a husband and wife who are serial killers and they're looking for the next victim, and that's all I'm going to say about it. It's really, really dark, really creepy. It was really interesting to read from a serial killer or murderer's perspective. All of her books are like this. They're kind of following really awful people. Not necessarily killers all the time, but yeah, her characters are always really, really bad. And I just really enjoyed this one. I love the way that it was written. Again, I found it very thrilling. There's also Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay. This is his debut under this pen name. There was a rumour going around that this was the same author as The Woman in the Window, I think it's called, AJ Finn, but that has been disproved. I think Alex Finlay has actually been on camera since, and they're not the same person. So thank you, book community, for spreading that one. This book is told in dual timelines, which I really, really enjoy, and they sort of come together right at the end. There were some problematic elements. I thought I didn't love the way that the author wrote about the character's time in Mexico or Mexican people, so please be aware of that before going into this book. Maybe read some other reviews, but I did find it very thrilling and it was certainly enjoyable for the most part and it kept me guessing, which is why it's on this list. I also really enjoyed The Girls I've Been. This is another YA book. This is about a girl who is involved in a bank robbery, and I don't really know how much to say about this one. Again, without spoiling it, it's very difficult to talk about thrillers sometimes because of all the twists, but it's very fast paced. The main character, I believe, is bisexual, which you don't often see in mystery thrillers or horror books, so that was great. I think it's going to be turned into either a TV show or a film on Netflix, so I would recommend this one if you want a really fast paced book. There's also one that I read recently called I Shot the Devil. This one is about a true crime journalist who goes back to her hometown to reinvestigate a crime that happened there. There's lots of like satanic worship and reasoning behind the event that happened. The main character was sort of on the outskirts of this friendship group who all ended up attacking and killing each other. So she knows of the case. She wasn't there when it happened, I don't think, but she has some connections to it and so she wants to investigate it further. I think people's main complaints about this book was that the main character does some silly things, which is true, but that happens a lot in mystery thrillers and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing as long as it's not like really, really ridiculous and out of character. I also need to recommend The Last to Vanish by Megan Miranda. This is the first book I've read from her in years because I read, I think it's called like Fracture or Fractured by her, which was her YA debut, and it was terrible. I found it so boring, but this one was really, really good, mostly because of the atmosphere. I have done a full review on this if you'd like to go and check that out, but in short, it's set in a small town along the Appalachian Trail and people keep going missing there. I think so far they've gone missing like 3 or 4 separate times, and the main character came to town about 10-20 years ago, started working at the sort of motel or hotel where people keep disappearing from. What I really, really enjoyed about this one was the atmosphere. The characters were boring, had no personality, which is often the case I found with Megan Miranda's books now that I've read a few more of them, but the atmosphere was absolutely incredible and I loved the story about the hikers that were going missing because I also really like hiking and that's why I found it so chilling and scary. So I gave this one 5 stars. Go and check out my review if you haven't seen it already because I do go into more detail about it there. I also recently read The River at Night and I don't think this is the best book in the world, but I would recommend it if you're into sort of survival stories, people being lost in the woods stories. I would call this a survival adventure thriller, which is a genre that I do really enjoy apparently. It's basically about a group of friends who, they're all women and they go on their annual trip together. They go off into forest, I can't remember where, I think maybe in Maine, and they're meant to go white water rafting and it goes horribly wrong. Their guide dies and they have to try to get out of the forest without any like GPS or anything. And then bad things obviously start to happen. I really, really enjoyed it. It was really fast paced. I did pick up the author's other book called Into the Jungle, which I didn't like at all. That was terrible, but I do want to read her 3rd book, which I think is coming out in November. I think that one's set in the Arctic and I hope it's good. I hope that it's better than her 2nd one. I also really quickly want to mention The Castaways by Lucy Clark. This one isn't going to be for everyone. I know some people really, really don't like this book, but I really enjoyed it because it's about a plane crash. It's about 2 sisters. They're meant to get on a flight together, but one of them misses the flight because they had an argument the night before. The other one does get on the flight and then it crashes onto an island. It then skips forward to the sister who didn't get on the flight, looking into what happened to the flight itself and to her sister, and trying to figure out if anyone could possibly still be alive after having crash landed quite a few years ago. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Again, the survival adventure stuff was really good. Apparently I like stories about plane crashes as well. I didn't know that about myself. There were some questionable themes in this regarding motherhood, but it didn't really bother me too much at all. There are just 2 more to go. The first one is the Sanatorium. This one is set in the Swiss Alps, I think, at an old sanatorium which has been turned into a hotel. The main character's brother is having his engagement party there, I think, and then his new fiance goes missing. The main character, who is an ex-detective or like on a break or something from her detective work, she turns up, realizes someone's gone missing, and then there's a freaking avalanche, so everyone's sort of stuck there. So it's like an isolated thriller. I really enjoyed this one actually. It was really good, very atmospheric, freezing cold and fun. I don't think it's the best thriller in the world, but again, the atmosphere really got to me, and I love the types of thrillers that are set somewhere else rather than like a small town or a city or something. I found like the Sanatorium, One by One by Ruth Ware, which both are set in the Alps, The River at Night, which is set in the forest, The Last to Vanish, which is obviously set along the Appalachian Trail. Things like that. I think I really enjoy thrillers with a brand new setting, or thrillers where the main characters feel really isolated. I think that's really fun to read about. And then finally, the last book that I have to recommend is The Push, which is super popular, which is why I kind of left it towards the end. This is a thriller book. Yeah, I would say it's a thriller book. It's following several generations of women and their relationships with their daughters, all within the same family, and all of them have very peculiar or not normal relationships with their daughters, and it kind of shows generational trauma and how your relationship with your mother can affect your relationship with your daughter and how that can be passed down. I really enjoyed this one. I don't think it's the best thriller ever. It's not an all-time favorite, I wouldn't say, but it did stick with me. I did really enjoy reading about the relationships, and I really enjoy generational stories anyway in literary fiction, so seeing that in one of my thriller books that I was reading was really intriguing. I would highly recommend this one as well. Those are all of the thriller and horror, a couple of horror books that I have read over the last couple of years that I would like to recommend to you. I am of course always reading thriller and horror books, so I can probably do another one of these videos soonish, maybe in another 6 months once I've read some more. Let me know what your favourite horror and thriller books are from the past couple of years or so. I would love to know. I would love some more recommendations of things to check out. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe. It really helps me with the algorithm. It shows YouTube that you are enjoying my videos and that they're half decent. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all in the next one. Bye.